Good morning. On behalf of the Institute on Immigrant Integration, Research and Policy at the Rockefeller Institute of Government, we are delighted to welcome you to our conference, Engineering Cohesive Communities, Social Integration of Foreign-Born Americans. Last week in her remarks to Congress, Governor Hochul stated, "The America that I believe in is a nation of laws and a nation of immigrants. Abandoning either threatens the very foundation in which our great country was built." With this statement, we kick off our conference by acknowledging where we all came from, by embracing our common immigrant heritage, our DNA, our source of strength. Because in embracing our heritage and knowing where we all come from, we will know where we are all going, as Maya Angelou once said. Embracing our immigrant heritage is the first step in recognizing the ties that bind us all together and that are instrumental in achieving community cohesion. It is my distinct pleasure to officially kick off the conference with welcome remarks from some of our leaders. First, I'm delighted to introduce Robert Megna, President of the Rockefeller Institute of Government. President Megna guides research and policy analysis that inform equitable state and local governance, ensuring data-driven solutions reach underserved communities. His career in public administration reflects a commitment to strengthening institutional capacity for broad-based social impact. Bob, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Dina. Thank you very much. And I want to welcome everyone. And it's a pleasure to see that my screen is just covered with names of folks who are attending this conference. First and most important, I think people need to remember how vital Dina and Guillermo are to this process. They do an enormous amount of work to make something like this happen. I also want to thank Joel Tirado and the other folks at Rockefeller who are helpful in getting something like this off the ground at this critical time in our history. I don't know that there's ever been a more important time to be talking about this issue given what's going on in the country today. And I come from a generation, I think, that forgets some of the issues, right? Both of my grandfathers were born in Italy. That's something that I think a lot of the folks in my generation and their children forget. What Dina said, that we are a country of immigrants, that this has always been true. And in some eras more true than others. And there's always been a backlash to it, if we're going to be honest, right? Which is why we need to hear from folks like you. So you don't need to hear from me. We need to hear from the people that Dina has organized to speak at this conference and present papers. I look forward to hearing from all of you, and I will turn it back over to Dina. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Bob. Thank you for your unwavering support of the work of the Institute and for standing firm, honestly, on your values and true to your values. This is what true leadership is. Now we introduce recorded remarks from several champions of immigrants who will set the stage for our discussion and the entire conference. I will briefly introduce them before you hear their recorded remarks. Honorable David Paterson, the 55th Governor of New York and longtime advocate for immigrant communities. As New York's first African-American Senate minority leader and later governor, David Paterson has leveraged his historic positions to enact anti-predatory lending laws and safeguard the state's fiscal health for all citizens. His career-spanning legislative leadership, public advocacy, and teaching embodies a lifelong mission to expand opportunity and challenge exclusionary narratives. Next, you will hear from Assemblywoman Phara Souffrant Forrest, who is the chair of the New York State Assembly Task Force on New Americans. Her grassroots tenant organizing and leadership in passing the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act embody her deep commitment to housing justice and economic equity for working-class New Yorkers. As a former maternal child nurse and tenant association president, she continues to advocate for affordable healthcare and a more just supervision system under the Less is More Act, ensuring vulnerable voices inform policy. You will also hear from Assemblymember Catalina Cruz, who is the chair of the New York State Assembly Committee on Standing Committees, and who has championed tenant protection, workers' rights, and immigration reform to ensure that every New Yorker can access safe, affordable housing and dignified work opportunities. Her record of passing over 24 laws to combat food insecurity and expand healthcare access demonstrates her unwavering dedication to uplifting marginalized communities and fostering collective well-being. You will also hear from Assemblymember Grace Lee, who's the chair of the New York State Assembly Asian Pacific American Task Force. Grace Lee broke barriers as the first Korean American woman in the New York State Legislature and chairs the APA Task Force, which amplifies Asian American and Pacific Islander voices in policymaking. Through her leadership in Lower Manhattan's diverse districts, she champions immigrant small businesses and cultural preservation as cornerstones of an inclusive urban community. Last, you will hear from Maria Teresa Kumar. Ms. Kumar is the president and CEO of Voto Latino, a leading voice for Latino civic engagement. She has transformed the civic landscape through Voto Latino's innovative use of technology and social media, registering over 1.5 million new Latino voters to strengthen democracy. By advising national task forces on policing and election crisis, she relentlessly fights disinformation and centers youth engagement as critical to an inclusive electorate. Let's hear from our leaders.
Welcome on behalf of Dina Refki and my old friend, Guillermo Martinez, who is now the Deputy Director for Intergovernmental Relations for the Institute for Immigrant Integration and Public Policy. If we have the distinct advantage of hindsight, last year at this time, some of the discussion that will come up this year would not even have seemed possible. But there has been a strong reaction to foreign-born Americans, even the ones who become citizens, even the ones who are applying for citizenship, even the ones who are going through the judicial system to try to become citizens of this country, inevitably. And there has been a strong impact and opposition to that. And what we'd like to remind the people who are engaging in that kind of conduct is that their parents and their parents' parents and all of us came to this country either from other countries or on ships and some in chains. But what makes America great, really great, is that after a period of time, we've all melded into the melting pot and work together. And so I ask, are we going to engage in absurd extremes or raise hopes we can't fill? Are we going to allow there to be this kind of treatment of people who, for the most part, are individuals who are just looking to get a new opportunity? There's no denying that there have been times when immigrants from other countries have engaged in crimes, but they haven't always come from the countries south of the United States. Many of them come from Europe and Russia and Czech and a whole lot of other places where the individuals who were shown to be dishonest and criminal were thrown out, and they somehow got into this country. So we're not really looking to find a safe haven for them, but at the same time, we don't want those instances to interfere with the large number of individuals who, because of economics, or because of family situations, or because of fear for the governments in the countries they live, have sought refuge here in the United States of America. And that's why we are such a great nation. So I just want to wish all of you who are being part of this great conference this year well. A lot of issues will come up this year that, as I said, would have seemed unfathomable last year, but that's why the organization exists, and that's why I think this will be time well spent for the next couple of days. Thank you.
Good morning and welcome to the 2025 Annual Conference on Immigrant Integration, hosted by the Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy at the Rockefeller Institute of Government. I'm Phara Souffrant Forrest, Chair of the New American Task Force in the New York State Assembly, and I am honored to share a few words with you today. This year's theme is Engineering Cohesive Communities. Social integration of foreign-born Americans. And even though we're gathering virtually, our resolve is stronger than ever. Together, we'll explore how policy, research, and grassroots action can wield our diverse experiences into a shared vision of belonging. I'm excited for the creative ideas and collaborative spirit that this format will unleash. When I think about immigrant integration, I think about my own story. I was raised by Haitian parents who came to this country chasing a dream of safety, opportunity, and a better life for their children. They worked long hours, learned a new language, navigated unfamiliar systems, and made countless sacrifices, all so that my sister and I can grow up believing anything was possible. Their courage reminds me every day that immigrants are not just statistics or headlines. They are parents, entrepreneurs, caregivers, students, and they are America's greatest strength. In the New York State Assembly, I have fought for policies that honor that strength. As the chair on the Task Force on New Americans, I have worked to expand language access in our schools, strengthen pathways to citizenship, and support family-run businesses. We've secured funds for adult education and workforce training so that every New Yorker, regardless of where they are born, has the tools to strive. I'm proud that New York leads the nation in legislation that uplifts communities, and I know we have more to do. That's why I'm especially grateful for the partnership of the Rockefeller Institute's Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy. Your rigorous research, clear policy analysis, and commitment to evidence-based solutions guide our work in Albany. From measuring the economic contribution of immigrant-owned businesses to evaluating the impact on community-based legal services, your work shines a light on what we can and must do to build a more inclusive, prosperous New York. Over the next 2 days, you will hear from experts, activists, and community leaders. You will explore new data, share best practices, and forge partnerships that will drive back change. I encourage you to challenge assumptions, ask difficult questions, and imagine bold solutions, because integration isn't just about fitting in, it's about transforming our communities for the better. When we welcome immigrants, we expand our workforce, enrich our culture, and strengthen our democracy. And when we invest in their success, we invest in all of us. Thank you for your dedication to this vital work. Together, let's continue to build a New York and a nation that recognizes immigrant heritage as a source of strength, and ensures that every newcomer has the chance to write the next chapter of American story. Thank you and enjoy the conference.
In my work as co-founder and president of Voto Latino, we've seen the power of inclusion firsthand. We are working to bridge information gaps, counter disinformation, and empower Latino communities to engage civically, not just on elections, but in shaping the institutions that affect their daily lives. Through research, digital engagement, and community partnerships, we're helping young Latinos claim their place in the civic fabric of this country. But we can't do this alone. Building cohesive communities takes all of us, business leaders, researchers, advocates, and neighbors, working together to ensure that everyone feels seen, valued, and connected. Too often, immigrants are treated as outsiders in this country they now call home, targeted by misinformation, dehumanizing rhetoric, and exclusionary policies. We must reject those narratives and replace them with the truth that immigrants are not only part of our communities, they help build and sustain them. This is why gatherings just like this today matter so much. They remind us that cohesion must be intentionally designed. It must be built through inclusion, empathy, and shared purpose. And it must be reinforced by policies and practice, especially at the state and local levels, where the impacts of integration are most deeply felt. State and local governments have an opportunity, a responsibility, to modernize our institutions for the 21st century, to build up for a multicultural America, and to lead with inclusion in governance. Over 40 million people in the United States are foreign-born, and nearly 1 in 4 children are growing up in an immigrant family, underscoring the vibrant, evolving identity of our nation. Inclusive governance means ensuring access to civic participation, language justice, culturally competent services, and public leadership that reflects the communities it serves. It also means telling a different story, one that recognizes immigration not as a threat, but as the foundation of our shared prosperity. Let me be clear. The future of this country depends on how boldly we embrace our diversity and how deliberately we include everyone in the promise of democracy. We cannot afford to leave anyone behind, not morally, not economically, not politically. We have not had a comprehensive immigration reform since President Ronald Reagan. Now is the moment to modernize our immigration system to meet the needs of this country for the 21st century. Because the country that figures that out will own the 21st century. Just like this gathering, our work needs to remain thoughtful and intentional to achieve inclusive governance. Thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the 2025 Virtual Conference on Immigrant Integration, Engineering Cohesive Communities, Social Integration of Foreign-Born Americans. I'm Catalina Cruz, Assemblywoman for the 39th District in Queens, New York. And today I join you not only as a legislator, but as someone whose journey mirrors the challenges we gather to address. Growing up undocumented, my family, dreamers ourselves, lived in the shadows, fearful that any misstep might tear us apart. Despite my mom's hard work, our dreams felt out of reach until community advocates and mentors helped me find my voice. I went to college, earned my degree, and then on to law school and found purpose fighting for people who, like my family, want a seat at the table. That path brought me to Albany, where I'm proud to serve New Yorkers in the State Assembly. This story is shared by millions, families striving to belong and contributing immeasurably to our society. Our theme, Engineering Cohesive Communities, Social Integration of Foreign-Born Americans, is about more than policy. It's about real lives. And throughout today's sessions, you will explore innovative models and research supporting social cohesion and hear from those removing barriers around housing, education, and employment. By combining insights from government, civil society, and the private sector, we can build solutions that foster genuine inclusion. When immigrants and their host communities come together as neighbors and partners, they become architects of shared prosperity. But polarization and fear fueled by divisive rhetoric threaten our social fabric. Allowing false narratives to take root weakens not only individuals, but our collective well-being. That is why I urge state and local governments to practice inclusive governance every day, amplify immigrant voices, counter negative narratives with compassion and evidence, and recognize how immigrant communities strengthen our economy and our culture. To the advocates, policymakers, researchers, and practitioners here today, your work is vital. Integration is a dynamic exchange between skills, innovation, and resilience, while host communities offer resources, mentorship, and pathways to citizenship. When these elements align, we create cohesive, resilient communities where everyone belongs and trust in our institutions grow. That is the future we must build, where no child fears deportation, no parent loses sleep, and every newcomer knows that they are welcome. Thank you for dedicating your expertise and energy to this mission. During this conference, engage fully, ask questions, and forge partnerships, and take these ideas back to your communities. Together, we will engineer cohesive communities, not as a slogan, but as a reality that transforms lives and strengthens our democracy. I would like to thank the leadership of the Institute of Immigrant Integration Research and Policy at the Rockefeller Institute of Government over at SUNY, and its work, which is bearing fruit under the helm of Dr. Dina, Refki, and my friend Guillermo Martinez. And to all the 2025 cohort of fellows on immigrant integration. Thank you for your tireless work, and welcome everyone. Let's get to work.
Hi, everyone. I'm Assemblymember Grace Lee, representing Lower Manhattan, and I'm the proud daughter of immigrants. It's an honor to welcome you to today's virtual conference. Thank you to the Institute on Immigrant Integration Research and Policy at the Rockefeller Institute of Government for hosting this dynamic and important event. Today, more than ever, working to build a sense of belonging and build trust in our institutions is vital within our immigrant communities. Together, we can keep advocating for the immigrants that help make New York the greatest state in the country. Because immigrants, they get the job done. Thank you again, and have a wonderful conference.
Thank you so much. Indeed, integration is not about fitting in, but it is about transforming communities for the better. It's not about policy, but it's about real lives, real people's lives. So as we heard, let's get to work figuring out inclusion, or inclusion of everyone in the fabric of communities, and creating communities that do not just survive, but thrive.